Welcome back to The Big Show, talking to my favourite people and the country's biggest stars. Everybody knows I love Jane McDonald, and the biggest star, well, of course she is. She's got a new DVD out and she's here talking to us. How are you?
Hello, gorgeous.
You're just fabulous. I love you. I tell you why, because you can do it, you don't muck about, you turn up in theatres and people pay to see you, and who can do that anymore?
Well, I have been quite shocked, actually, by the response of the audience. We've been on tour forever. It seems like, in fact, my gowns stand up on their own now when I take it off. Like, it's not attractive. The downwind, God help you. But, it's been a long tour, but everybody said, please put this on DVD. Where can we get this show? Where can we see it? And so that's basically what we did. We went to the London Palladium. We had a full house. It was fantastic. It was just one of those nights that so grateful captured it on film and got it on CD and on DVD out for Christmas.
The good thing about you is that there's little risk involved in terms of the punters buying it, but in terms of finance, I mean, you do put your neck on the line. Hiring the Palladium is not cheap, and a film crew can't be cheap either. There is risk involved with a show like that, isn't there?
I'm completely backing. I'm backing, aren't I? Let's be honest. Even my other half said, buy it, lass, you take some risks. And he's not even from Yorkshire. But he says, fancy pay mortgage off first, and I've always been, even when I was a club singer, I always invested in the show. I always had the best backing tapes, I always had the finest outfits, and that seems to be my shtick, really. I do like to invest in the show. I like to put a good show on and a good concert, and by heck, we've done it.
It's so amazing. I was thinking back, I can't remember what year you came off that boat, but I think 3 weeks afterwards we did our first interview. Since then, it's been so smart the way you've run your career, because there's been ups and downs, obviously, and you've had people who could have wrecked it, but you've always come back fighting. And the one thing I think the public love more than anything is tenacity, isn't it? The fact you're still here, you're still trying, and you're still winning.
Well, winning, thank you for that. I would say winning. I wake up every morning thinking somebody's going to knock on my door and saying, you can't really do this. We've found you out now, haven't we? And I do tend to keep my head down. I don't sort of put myself out there as much as I should, really. Like a lot of people do in the industry. They're on every front page doing every advert and blah, blah. It's just not my way. I'm quite a private person off stage. But when I'm on stage, that's my time for the public, and they are wonderful. My fans are just second to none, and I'm very, very, very lucky to have a fan base and as loyal as they are, and they're just wonderful. But you have got to take risks. It's not an easy job, and I think people are a bit misled these days. They see the X Factor, they see the pound signs. Oh my God, that could happen to me. But there is a huge amount of work that goes into it behind the scenes. And
the lovely thing about your show is it just looks so natural, and nothing really can go wrong. Even if the power went, you'd still find a piano and sing along. Do you know what I mean? And you look relaxed. How long was it before that was part of your life that you actually didn't fear the audience anymore? Because that's the key to a great performer, isn't it?
Well, I thank you for that. In the clubs, I did 15 years in the club circuit. And, when you've got somebody playing dominoes on the front row, reading the Sun, you've got a bad audience to start with. But when they actually put that paper down and look up, then you know that you're winning. And I think you've got to go out there and die a few times. And all of us in the clubs and other cruise ships have died a few times. And I think you have got to go through a lot of failure to then learn how to be a winner.
And you've stayed loyal to who you are in terms of where you live and your family, and we all know about your relationship with your mum. You've let her down a bit, you've moved out since, we'll talk about that later, but you're never going to leave Wakefield, are you? There's no point at this stage.
This is it's my home. Leeds is up the road. I'm here in Leeds. We've got Harvey Nicks. It's dead posh up here, But then, of course, you've got your local chippy. So I love that we've got every aspect. I've got a big city, which is 15 minutes away from me, and then I've got the countryside, which is also 15 minutes the other way. So I could not ask for more. And home is where the heart is.
And, of course, you get to dip your toe in Lovey Lake occasionally when you go down to London. And I know you're currently doing the Alan Titchmarsh show. That's the latest phase of your TV career. And you get invited to everything. Do you pick and choose what you go to? Because you don't want to be the person that turns up to everything, do you?
I don't usually go. And my other half is very, very quiet. And he's been 40 years in the industry. The last thing he wants to do is go out there and do it all again. So actually, it's a night out for us is a night in. So we don't tend to be very showbiz. And that's a bit sad, really. But it is quite nice that I've got a partner that understands that as well, that we would rather just, stay in.
You make yourself available to your punters and they love you for it. Is that still okay? Because it's time consuming.
It's very time consuming, but they've spent a lot of time coming to the theatre, sitting there and watching you, and theatre after theatre after theatre. The least I can do is say, hello, how are you? And how's your family? And a lot of my fans now are friends. You know, I've got to know them very, very personally, as they have me. And, you know, the first 3 rows are always people that I would class as friends. And they're lovely. I'm very, very lucky to have such a lovely fan base. They are sincerely beautiful people. They're lovely. They're lovely. I love them.
We're going to play a lot of music by Jane McDonald during this interview. The song that you look forward to the most, that you may have done 3 million times, but it still gives you a kick. What is that in the show?
Probably You're My World. You're My World was the thing that really catapulted me, gave me a #1 album, a platinum album. And it's still the song that everybody goes, oh, in the show, and I say this is dedicated to the fans. And I really do mean it when I say this is for the fans who've kept me doing the job that I love all these years.
I love your stories about the clubs, because there you were in your posh frocks and nobody really cared for a point until you opened your trap. But that is the truth with the clubs, isn't it? If you're a good turn, they'll listen to you. If not, you'll get short shrift.
Exactly, and I do feel sorry for the youngsters of today, because there isn't now the club scene that there was. The working men's clubs have sort of died a death. A lot of them have anyway. There's still some very good ones around, but even my Sue Ravey, who was my backing singer, she was a club act as well. We all were, all of us on the stage. Foz, who was the other backing singer, was a club act as well. But we've all done the training, and it was a great life. I can't knock the clubs at all. 15 years. Well, you can sing anywhere when you've done 15 years in the clubs, I'll tell you. But don't diss the bingo, because that's what pays your wages, love. Yeah. You know, and God forbid if the act ever won it. You know, because you would be lynched in the car park, you know.
I did a club in Nottingham a few weeks ago, and they actually turned the lights off on stage because I went 30 seconds over.
Yep.
In terms of the songs that you found worked, is there much point sticking in stuff that nobody's heard of? Will they sit through that, or have you got to make sure that your show is sing along, hum along, and I know it?
In the club days, oh no, you've got to do a Sheffield finish. You know, I mean, it's good to bring in new songs, you know, but chart songs, you know, that people listen to on the radio, because also they do want to come out, they want to hear something that they're familiar with. And, you know, saying that, I used to watch one of the Grumbleweeds, Albert Grumbleweed. He went from comedian to opera singer, and that was, everybody turned up thinking he was going to be this big comic, but when he opened his mouth and sang opera, you just went, oh my goodness me. So I think shock value can be very good as well.
And that's interesting, because you're a bit like that. I think there are some people that just think you're the mouthy, broad off loose women that gobs off at everything until they hear you sing. Does that bother you a little bit, that actually that's overtaken the fact that you're a tremendous singer and can hold an audience at the Palladium for 2 hours?
No, I quite like being known as anything.
You just want to be known.
If it's a gobby northerner, then that's fine by me. I don't mind. You see, in the show, I do a lot of comedy, and I'm quite gobby in the show.
I like your mucky gags, by the way.
Oh, stop it.
There's a little joke you did last time about a washing machine.
We're not telling that on here.
Well, we better not. But I did it on my last programme. But I mean, you do take risks, and your audience love it.
It's not offensive, and it's also innuendo. So it's whatever you take that connotation to be. So it's whatever your mind is thinking at the time. So I'm not being actually very rude. It's what they're thinking it is. So that's my way out. It's very carry on.
I would love to do them on the air now and see how the bosses reviewed them here at the BBC afterwards. I think there'd be a few forms to be filled in at the end of it.
Well, that's their dirty mind.
Yes, it is. It's nothing to do with us. And in terms of putting your show together, how do you make that happen? Because it looks spectacular. So there's a job in itself. It sounds amazing. So you've got to have a good PA system. It's all those little elements before you even get on.
Well, it's funny because I'm up in the show. I'm up in the show again for next year. This has been a huge expense this year. And Ken Dodd and I do the same circuit all the time. And Ken Dodd did an interview the other day, and he says, yeah, Jane McDonald's a good girl, but she don't make any money. And he's so right, because I do put everything into the show, whether it's the gowns, the singers. I've got the best musicians, and the best sound system, and it's going to have a stage set next. I mean, there's going to be so much happening, but that's how I've always worked, and that's why I'm still here, probably 14 years from the cruise. I sincerely hope it is.
You don't want a few quid for a loaf of bread or anything, though, do you?
Can you lend us a fiver?
Let's take another piece of music by Jane McDonald, another song that you love to sing.
Oh, I actually love Dance Yourself Dizzy as well, because I know it's the end of the show and I'm going to get a pint.
We're back on your favourite local radio station talking to Wakefield's very own Jane McDonald. A bit of Yorkshire stuff then, some of the clubs that you love round here.
Oh, there's so many. Well, Leeds was always a great circuit. You know, every club in Leeds I've done. And Wakefield, all surrounding it. Sheffield, my goodness, Sheffield's a great big clubs as well, like Dial House, and you've got some massive clubs. But there was all the mills then. You see, there was loads of stuff happening there. But big in the old days, you know, we had all the mills, the steel works, and the working men's club absolutely thrived. And then when the pits shut and everything else went haywire in the early days, then, you know, it took a different slant. But hopefully the clubs will come back. I sincerely hope they do. The Working Men's Club were a fantastic way for everybody.
I don't know whether they will come back though, because I wonder whether people would rather stay at home and get drunk cheaper and they can smoke at home. It's all the whole culture's changed.
Yeah.
I just want to know that feeling when you stood in the wings in these clubs, because I often find those more intimidating than certainly doing this, because you can literally eyeball the people. In the early days, how nervous were you?
Well, I used to just go on. I knew I could carry a tune, and I always knew that I could communicate, and that was different. That was something I was different to the rest of the girls, because I actually spoke to the audience a lot. And I got told, funny enough, by every single agent that I worked for to shut up and just sing. Even up to the management that I've had from the last 10 years. Shut up and sing. Just be the diva that everybody wants you to be. And I always think that's actually probably my strength, that I do actually communicate with the audience and that I do talk to the audience. But you would not believe the amount of people who've told me to stop doing that.
Where do you think that comes from then? What is all that about? Because if we're not buying into the personality and who you are, what are we doing listening to you?
Exactly. I don't seem to get what they're trying to say. They said that I don't need to. That's what they keep saying. You don't need to be funny. You don't need to talk to everybody. You've got a good enough voice to do that.
I've had bosses in the past who've told me the same. Don't you worry about that. Just play the records, they say. It's true, though. It's funny. And I don't know whether it's because they don't understand audiences. And again, it depends whether you want to be one of these acts that you come and see and you go and you say, well, they were a great singer. I don't think actually that's everything you want people to say about you. You want them to like you, don't you?
Of course you do. But I think everybody in every walk of life wants to be liked. And if you can go out there and be quite open, and I talk about everything on stage. You've seen it, you know, and people shout out the audience, and how's your mum, and is Ed in his shed? That's the poor lad. I mean, he gets that all the time now. But it's nice that you've got that intimacy with, you know, over 1,000 people a night. It is a lovely thing to do, I think. And I'm really glad that I took no notice of everybody who tried to work with me in the old days.
And then you hit the big time and suddenly big checks are being offered to you because you're doing TV. And of course, after the cruise, everybody wanted to be part of you. How easy was that for you to go from being Jane McDonald, the performer that goes out and be showbiz, to being the businesswoman that's actually got to control your business so people don't rip you off?
Well, I had a dip in that because I went from being, you know, the club act and the cruise ship singer to, like you said, that amount of work and amount of money. But I had nothing to do with the money at that time, you see. And I didn't know how much was coming in. I didn't know how much was going out. And I was quite in a little bubble. I just thought, oh, that's lovely. People want to come and see me. A few more people want to come and see me. Didn't realise just what was going off in the background. And the biggest thing that ever happened to me was my husband leaving. And that's when I learned to be a businesswoman, because I was shocked at how much was coming, how much I was being paid. I was like, oh my goodness me. And that then put me on a completely different level because I took over the business. So that was the best thing he could have ever done for me in my whole marriage, was leaving it. And I'm very grateful that he did. And I had to pick up and I had to learn. And I think a lot more people, especially artists, should learn the business side of it. Because there's a lot to do, an awful lot.
I remember us sitting down in the Piccadilly Theatre. You were in Romeo and Juliet at the time when the thing hit the fan with your husband. And at that point you knew it was all over. I mean, you talk about all that as if, oh, well, I've learnt a lesson and that's great. But actually at the time, I mean, it was devastating for you, wasn't it?
Of course it was. It was devastating because I got married on television and everybody wanted that to be such a success, including myself. But if somebody doesn't want to be with you, and if somebody doesn't love you, then you can't make them. And I realised that I had to let him go. But you also have to think, but I'm still here. And that's when I went on and did, I mean, thank goodness for Romeo and Juliet, which I was in the theatre. And I had to cry about 8 times in the show, and everybody said, God, she's emotional, isn't she good at that? Actually, I was just grieving my marriage on stage, and it worked for me at that time. As I said, you can't be bitter. You can't, and you have to move on and just, I've still got the golden goose. I'm still the artist, whereas I do feel a little bit sorry for him now because I've gone on from strength to strength, which must really be maddening for him.
Well, and I'm wondering, like many of my enemies, whether he's following you on the internet and seeing what you're up to, because I don't know how you would go from being as involved with you as he was to having nothing to do with you without being curious.
Oh, I'm sure he is curious, and I'm sure he's keeping his eye on me, but I'm sure he wishes me well, just as I wish him well.
We're back on your favourite local radio station with Jane McDonald. We're talking about her life and career. The Hand That Leads Me is a song that you talk about in the show because it means a lot to you, doesn't it?
Yes, The Hand That Leads Me is probably my biggest hit, that I've written. And I wrote it for my mother because everybody knows my mother. Everybody knows how close I am. And she literally is the hand that leads me through every problem in life. And to have that is just wonderful. I am very blessed to have a mother that I've got and a relationship with her that I've got. And I just wanted to sort of give something back to her. And I said to her, do you get upset or anything when I'm singing it? And she says, no. She says, I just think about my mum. And I thought, isn't that lovely? Everybody takes that in their own way. And the fans just love that song, so I'm really pleased.
How is she? She's homeless, isn't she?
She's in a cardboard box. No.
Bless her. You've kicked her out, the poor lady. She loved you all those years and you hit show business at the top and
I know. Bye.
out she goes.
Yeah, bye. No, she lives 4 doors down. I bought a nice little bungalow and it's absolutely brilliant because she can still do me ironing. She still does me a casserole and she still does the Sunday roast. So I haven't actually, all I've got now is the house for Ed and I, but actually I could do with it back, I'll be honest with you.
Really?
It's hard work. It's hard work on your own.
And so much has happened for you in the last year. I mean, Loose Women, you were there for so long, and in my opinion, as I've said before and I've said publicly, without you, I don't think it's the same. I think you brought a great energy to it and a warmth to it that not everybody's got on that programme. Why did you leave? Why was enough to walk away from Loose Women?
Well, I enjoyed 7 years of it, and I had a wonderful, wonderful time. But when you've seen me in concert, you'll understand that I had to make a choice. Loose Women is live every single day of the week, and I was exhausted of doing touring, putting the shows together, writing, producing, everything else that I do in life, and having to commute to London all the time as well.
I can see builders in Bingley saying, oh, what's she on about? It's an hour a day on Loose Women, but actually you get in there at 7, you leave here at like 3 in the morning, don't you?
Yes, that's right. So I had to be up at 4 o'clock every morning to catch that early train to get down there for the 7:45 meeting in London, and I just physically could not do that anymore. I think it's a brilliant, brilliant show, and I wish the girls lots and lots of luck. And they have left the door open for me, which I think is lovely, that I can always go back at a later date. But at the minute, there's just no way I can fit everything in.
And in terms of that programme, it enabled you to have an opinion on stuff, which is great, until you open your trap and upset somebody,
Yes.
which happens regularly because it's live and it's there, and actually that's what the producers want. It makes good telly. Are there any regrets at this point about things you've said about people? Have anybody collared you as you're leaving ITV?
Well, I do tend to have an older head on my shoulders. That's probably what you were saying about, I actually think about the people that are watching it. And I know that my mother watched it. So I tended to be a little bit more candid certainly about my private life. I didn't want people to know everything about my life. And I think that is something that you are expected to do as a loose woman. You have to talk about every single element of your life. And with Ed coming into my life, I wanted to keep a little bit of privacy there. And also he has a family and you have to be aware of that. And they didn't want to be in the press. They don't want, and that's difficult for me then to do a show like Loose Women and look after the family that I'm going to inherit. So, you have to be a little bit careful.
And for those who haven't heard the story, you had a dalliance many years ago, in 1937, I think it was.
Yeah, it feels like it.
And then you both went off and hit show business. He hit it big time first, and then you were still doing the cruises and the clubs. And then look at you now, this big megastar. And there was a meeting at ITV. You were both in a chair having your hair done, weren't you? Or something?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, he was in the band called Liquid Gold that were riding high in the charts, and I was a barmaid in Wakefield, and Liquid Gold opened the Pussycats, where I used to work. It was fantastic. I wish it was still there now. Wow. In fact, somebody should really reopen that. It was a fantastic nightclub, and the drummer just saw me working on the middle bar and asked the owner if he could have a date with me. And we went out for about a year, on and off. But I think I was one of many. Because, I mean, he was a rock and roll star, travelling the world. The women that used to scream, and men that used to scream after them all, running down the street, I knew at that time that I had to let him go, because I couldn't hang on to that. I couldn't live up to that standard. And that's the best thing I ever did as well. That was a choice that I made, and we never split up. I just left one day, because he lived in Buckingham at the time. And like I said, he was with the Searchers, which I didn't know. And they were in the This Morning studio promoting their album. I just looked up on the monitor and I said, oh my God, I used to go out with him. And Donna, the makeup girl at Loose Women, said, you've got to go and say hello. I said, well, you might be married and have kids. She said, well, it don't matter, does it? You just say hello. And the moment we saw each other again, it was like, oh yeah, this is meant to be. So
and you're now engaged. When are you going to get married?
Well, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Oh, he's a lovely, lovely fella, and eventually we will get married. But at the minute, we're just enjoying life, and I think I'm too busy. I can't. The thought of actually planning a wedding as well would just tip me over the edge.
And you've got this new DVD out, of course, in the Palladium, where we get to see you shine. A, was it a good night? B, was it as good as you wanted it to be?
I don't think I could have paid people to be any better than that night was, and it was unbelievable. Thank goodness we filmed it. It was just one of those things that came together. It was a nightmare getting it prepared. As you said, the Palladium is a difficult place to hire, and you've got all those staff and everything else that come with it. And we had the best TV crew on there. And we've made a CD of it as well. So it's a CD and a DVD. So you're getting two for the price of one. It was sensational. It was just brilliant. My mother's in the royal box. Yeah.
Lovely.
I know. And she's waving like she's the queen. In fact, we call her Queen Jean in the show.
Very nice.
And Ed sat in there, because Ed wasn't allowed in. She was sat with my sister-in-law. Yeah. But Ed was sat next to Linda Bellingham, because they all get on really well. There was the Four Puffs and a piano. It was just a Banana Rama was sat in there. I was just like, blimey, who's all these people who's turned up? It was absolutely brilliant. The audience couldn't have been any better.
How nervous were you on those days running up to it that you were going to be as good as you could be? Because I would be just petrified I was going to get a cold, or something was going to happen with the voice, or I'd break my leg and arm. I mean, did you live in some form of cocoon for a while?
No, I've never done that, really. I just think I'll do the best of my ability on the night. And that's how you have to live your life.
Because it can play with your confidence, can't it, if you start thinking about all that stuff?
Hugely. I think because I produced it, I think because I was the executive producer, I didn't have time to actually think about the performance. And I had a dress change, and the zip went, my foot went through it, and this poor Joe Boyne, who was my backing singer, sang Duffy, and it ended up being a 12-inch version. And the poor girl was on her knees. She was begging for mercy by the time I got out, never mind singing it. And that is so funny, the sheer fear on her face when I walk out. She was like, what, you got that dress on for? You're not supposed to be in that. But there's lots of things happening all the time, so you do tend to forget about yourself.
And is it a joke, or is it true in the show when you say that, those adverts with the man with the strange voice and the little animal bloke? He's your pianist?
No, it's a joke.
It's a joke?
It's a joke.
Because he does a very good impression. No. I've been telling people for months that's true.
No, it's a joke. In fact, the guy, he must be sick of people saying, aren't you Jane McDonald's pianist? No, it's not. It's just a joke.
I always love talking to you, and you're one of my favourite people because you can do the business, and you're not a faker, really, are you? You really can do it, and it seems like there's no end to your success. I think by now people would have got bored of you.
Well, that's nice of you to say. I just go on my gut feeling, really. I think you have to listen to yourself, and we all get signs when things are wrong, and you have to follow those. And I tend to just go on my gut feeling and think, I think I'm going to do that next, or let's do this, and I tend to do that.
I think you're very brave, and putting on a show like this must cost an absolute fortune. And I know it's going to pay back dividends, because there's no questioning your talent, and your fans love you. And I just encourage people, if you've not heard a Jane McDonald album, for a start, where have you been? You've heard some tracks on here. Well, listen to her live and go and see her live. Touring forever, aren't you, really? It's just a constant tour.
Yeah.
What's your website?
Jane-McDonald.com.
All right. www.jane- is that a hyphen or a slash? I don't know.
Hyphen.
McDonald.com and the new DVD and the CD together. It's a double edition thing.
It is, yes.
So you get a bonus. So you can listen to it in the car and then go and watch it at home live at the Palladium. Jane, I love you very much. Thanks for coming in again.
I love you too.
It's always nice to talk to you. Off back to Wakefield with you.
Yes, I'm off back to Wakey. Thank you very much.
Say hello to your mother for me.
I will.
Ta-ra.
Bye.